Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the Sanrio / Hello Kitty collab that has just returned to North America. So, this machine will only cost you 5 magic stones, which means you can roll more liberally, along with the fact that it will only use 6-star Godfest exclusives as trade fodder. And yes, every card can be cute and adorable, but for the most part, the vast majority of bottom rarity and mid rarity cards have questionable value. You may roll them and you may not necessarily be quite happy with the result, whereas all the top rarity cards tend to have more meaningful value, and they're only a 1% chance each or 11% total for any of the 7 stars, but you can trade or monster exchange for almost all of them. So this can definitely be a get your free rolls, monster exchange, and just kind of keep saving your magic stones. But of course, if you do like to collect cute things, and maybe that's partially why we play pad, maybe this could be a good time to roll. And in that same note, the bottom rarity cards, all of them actually come with weapon assist. Not the mid rarity or top rarity, but the bottom rarity, which is kind of unusual, but at the same time, it at least might give them some merits or value when being used, because, you know, weapon assists tend to be the most flexible cards out there. And with that being said, the top rarity is definitely where most of the prizes are going to lie in, and many of them will actually feature 3 dungeon bonus awakenings. And dungeon bonus awakenings are incredibly valuable for solo mode because they increase the chance of any egg drop actually appearing. Not the rarity of the drop, but any drop, which means you're able to play the lower difficulty dungeons, which in turn saves stamina, decreases the difficulty when utilizing certain leaders. You will have a much higher chance to get some drops, and the dungeon bonus awakenings will make that chance even higher. So basically, to a certain extent, a large part is like squeezing as many of these as you can as possible onto a given team, along with the fact that because these cards have 3 on their own, they can inherit, say, button active skills to hasten your clear times, or more dungeon bonus awakenings to just, you know, have potentially more drops. So I feel like this is definitely much more of a trade-only event, because the 5 and 6-star cards, like I mentioned, they're going to comprise 89% of the rolling pool, and many of them are just going to be kind of disappointing, especially in the mid-rarity. A lot of times, Gung-Ho puts some of the best stuff in the mid-rarity, and here there are obviously some cards that have value, but none of them have weapon assist, which means if you have better sub options available, which is definitely a good chance because there's only so many subs you can bring in a given dungeon, whereas weapon assists tend to cover a wider range of possible solutions overall. More so, the point of the matter is I feel like rolling this event is not necessarily in your best favor, but I still want to at least take a look and talk about some of the more notable cards that I feel. Alright, so firstly we have J Kitty. So basically this is one of the new kitties that have been released, and after 20 turns, they do transform. And because it's only a single transformation, you don't have to wait any duration. And they're quite a powerful rainbow-based leader. They have 4 5 attribute awakenings, so immense personal damage. They have guard break to ignore any monstrous amounts of defense. And because they're a transforming card, they cannot benefit from things like double damage cap. And you may think, well, that's a little excessive damage output. Like, it is pretty excessive, but at the same time, they're going to be hitting for large numbers because their sub-attribute will contribute probably a damage cap's worth as well. So for their active skill, on a 3-turn cooldown, you get 1 turn of Void, Damage, Void. And then for 1 turn, this particular card raises their damage limit to 3 billion. So instead of dealing like 4.28-ish or whatever, they're doing 6 billion. It still is extra damage, and more is more. Like, it may make the difference between killing something or leaving something in execute range. It's just a nice thing to have overall, because usually transforming cards can't benefit from this, so this is a nice active skill to have. And then it will give you a full board unlock, and then change the whole board to fire, water, wood, light, and dark orbs. So you're guaranteed all 5 colors, and you unlock the board, so you're always going to have that consistency. So you always will be able to proc their leader skill, and their leader skill gives them immense attack multiplier and damage reduction when they match 5 or more colors, and basically just matching 5 more colors triggers all this. And this is a large attack multiplier. 676 times is quite large. 16 times effective health is basically a great threshold value. We're starting to see a couple of leaders with a little bit higher, but 16 is still enough for the most part overall. It is enough for the most part overall. And then you might be thinking, her active skill doesn't make hard orbs. That may be kind of awkward. I can't heal. Well, their leader skill is kind of wild. If you basically just match your 5 or more colors, which you're guaranteed to do with their active skill, you receive 15 times RCV additional healing when matching orbs. So just matching orbs. You're getting auto-healed. Auto-healing is pretty great because you don't have to worry about hard orbs ever. It also means that, in theory, your board actually has more colored orbs, which also means the damage output's going to be a little bit higher. It might make a bit of a difference, but again, more is more. So if you have 2 LJ Kitties on your team, so your leader, one of your subs, and then a friend, you have permanent uptime on this active skill. So you never need to bring the VDP latent. So that means everyone can be like double damage capping instead. They also have the ability to have guaranteed activation, and you never have to worry about healing. So like life becomes pretty interesting at that point in time because like, yes, you could get hard orbs. Instead, like say you use like Dark Raw Dragon to generate orbs instead of another LJ Kitty. Maybe, sure, whatever. So that particular turn you do heal more. But more so the point of the matter is it's a powerful rainbow-based leader that has a much lower threshold in thinking compared to like say a Telly who needs all 5 colors and hearts with lots and lots of TPAs on 7x6. So because the trade fodder is quite inexpensive, I am greatly inclined to suggest picking up one of these. Even if you only have one, you're probably going to be okay. Like get maybe say Dark Raw Dragon in order to get like close the loop of active skill to guaranteed all 5 colors. Or maybe you really love to play with spinners and you put a spinner creating card that can have permanent uptime. Point of the matter is I think it's an incredibly powerful rainbow based leader because it has bonus combos and auto follow attack and the consistency in activation, especially if you have duplicates. But again, trading for a second one, you obviously truly love this card, but it is quite a powerful solution. The next card I want to highlight is Varroa Kitty, and arguably Varroa Kitty, or Great Witch of Darkness Hello Kitty, is possibly the most valuable card in this entire event because she is the best at one particular thing, and that particular thing is valuable. So they come with 3 dungeon bonus awakenings, which is common on almost half of the top rarity cards. So obviously right away, they're great for those intermediate solo mode farming. They have a very low base cooldown of 3 turns, so you can easily inherit on top, say, a button active skill. But it's their leader skill that makes them the best, in conjunction with their awakenings and their low base cooldown. They give you 1.3 times egg drop rate. So this is the highest we have at this point in time in the game. Nothing goes higher, and there's only a couple other options. But in addition to that, it gives you auto follow attack when matching 1 or more combos. So if you couldn't button a floor for whatever reason, you just match a combo. Any combo, doesn't matter what combo. You get 1,000,000 auto follow attack damage. You can clear a lot of stuff, if especially like intermediate dungeons. For older things like gung-ho ticket farming, maybe they have like say lower thresholds in some aspects. There are certain intermediate dungeons that have lower thresholds is the point. So because she is the absolute best at what she does because of the most dungeon bonus awakenings, it may be a great idea to actually monster exchange for her, especially if you don't own Knight Kirasagi from the Gung-ho collab, not the Another Story, but the original Gung-ho collab, or regular Godfest exclusive Varroa. Neither of those options give as many dungeon bonus awakenings, so if you're really trying to maximize your output overall, Varroa Kitty is going to be the best thing to pick up. And again, it depends how much solo mode you actually play. Let's say you have 2 accounts and you're always playing co-op. Well, then maybe this card doesn't have as much value. You already had a Varroa sitting around, maybe not necessary. But if you like to play in solo mode, this is the best option available. So again, this is another card I highly recommend you actually pick up. Another card that you may want to consider monster exchanging for is Norza Kitty, because Norza Kitty is one of the newer ones, and they're a transforming base card on a 20-turn cooldown, and when they do transform, they have 2 blob awakenings, so immense personal damage with matching sub-attributes, so their sub-attribute will hit for big numbers. They give you Rose, they give Combo Orb, and they give these super auto-heal awakenings. And this is, you might think it's kind of weird, but if you have enough of these Norza Kitties on your team, in theory, you would have, you own 3 yourself and have a friend. So 4 of these on a team, you probably don't have to worry about matching hard orbs. And in fact, having 4 on a given team gives you a 4-turn cooldown active skill with 100% uptime. And it will remove all unmatchable, all bind, all awoken bind, just all awoken skill binds. You shouldn't be getting bound anyways when I really think about it. So clear unmatchable, clear all awoken binds, unlocks the board, changes the top 2 rows into water. So the idea is they become absolutely mindless to play because The only thing that's going to stop you are voids, like damage void, damage absorption, and attribute absorption. So as long as you have those things addressed and you transformed and you're all SDR'd up so you're not getting delayed, you can basically just pop an active skill and swipe. It's already pre-made your rogue, kind of like Shiva Dragon, but they remove that extra Awoken Bind clearing aspect and unlock the board, which may be problematic. But on top of that, you get the auto healing. Shiva Dragon teams, they may not necessarily be able to heal that well, especially like even though you can say Leos make hard orbs, it's going to still be a bit of a strain in healing. Norza Kitties don't need to do that. They don't have to worry about actually matching hard orbs because if you have enough of them on a given team, the auto healing actually becomes quite significant. And because their leader skill multiplier is all damage reduction based, their actual HP pool isn't that large. So you're able to swipe through, deal absolutely spectacular amounts of damage, including in super gravity based dungeons. So as a whole, Norza Kitty may be something meaningful to Monster Exchange for, especially if you're missing like Alpha Z, which is another great blob based orb generator. But unlike Alpha Z from the Ultraman collab, Norza Kitty gives you a pre-made solve. Alpha Z, you actually have to expend some brain power in matching. Again, to a certain extent, the goal of Pad is to play as little Pad or as mindlessly as absolutely possible, and Norza Kitty does absolutely that. Of course, monster exchanging for multiple copies of a same given card may drain your trade fodder quite quickly, and I strongly suggest you never get rid of your last 2 copies of a given card, because you never know when Gung Ho is going to give a certain card a buff or multiple split evolutions that make them significantly more valuable. And then if you're wishing you had it and you had it before and got rid of it, it's a little bit of a painful feeling. And then kind of in that same train of thought, if you didn't roll enough or you couldn't monster exchange for enough Norza Kitties, but you got the Kirimi-chan, or like the salmon as Lumen likes to call it, you can have another way to generate orbs. So you basically will generate the second row from the bottom and the bottom row to water orbs. So again, it will make you actually have your activation. It does unlock the board, unlike Shiva Dragon. So again, you're guaranteed activation on those swipe leaders, but it also cuts your health by 50%. So with the auto healing, you can kind of get away with that when you think about it. But at the same time, it lets you potentially benefit from these attack while below 50% awakenings. Obviously, you need lots of these on a given team to keep cutting your health, but it is a possibility because you can actually stack this awakening on these cards. And the fact that they are not transforming means they can double damage cap on their main attribute and possibly their sub attribute as well. So another powerful option, but you can't monster exchange for this card. You actually have to roll it, but if you do roll it, something to keep in the back of your mind for another option for water orb generation. Another card that I found personally helpful, just because I actually own it, so I actually know it works well, is Valkyrie Seal Kitty for my MD2 Daytona team, because I play in co-op with myself, and before, if I'm not mistaken, she had a 10 combo and 3 TPAs, and I was playing it possibly before the pre-TPA buff as well, but even if it's not pre-TPA buff, she gained 3 more TPAs, so suddenly they actually deal tremendously large amounts of damage on their sub-attribute, unlike beforehand. So it can be a way for you to just have more damage. And why do I find them useful? Well, they clear all bind Awoken skill binds, but they give you a 1 turn of damage reduction, which lets you tank, like, say, the increasing hits from, like, Blue Miru, or maybe, like, the 50% super resolve in the green version. But you have that, but it's also the 1 turn of attribute absorption cancellation, which is pretty much needed for, like, Eshimali or Paimon. So yes, that card will come up fast enough in co-op. I've done it before. I've played it for myself, and I know it does work. So if you roll this card, it's a great option. Or even in solo mode, if you think about it, you have 6 skill boosts, and you again have an active skill that guarantees you color absorption cancellation against those problematic spawns. Just obviously make sure you can hit 40 billion or so damage to, kill them in 1 turn, because it only lasts for a single turn. Another card that could be potentially helpful is Charmy Kitty. They are an orb skin, so you could potentially purchase them directly, but Charmy Kitty is unique because they have 8 different evolutions, and they're never going to be the best possible option for any given team, but if you have, the value of Charmy Kitty comes down to how weak your monster box is. The worse your monster box, the better Charmy Kitty is, because you will find one of these evolutions to be actually valuable for a given team. They may not surpass every possible option, hence why if you have an incredibly deep box, it may not be something you actually bring along, but because they have 8 different evolutions, at least one of them is probably going to help a given team out, because they all do quite a few different things, but they do come with a healthy amount of skill boost and personal damage. So I think Charmy's Kitty's pretty cool overall. I don't own one myself, but I wouldn't be, I guess, as disappointed rolling because, like, you know, one of those evolutions might come in handy one day. And then a 5-star card that I think can be quite interesting. Again, it's for like Daytona and co-op again. Like, I don't know, like it's my own personal experience. I don't have many of these cards, so I don't roll in this event. But I cannot pronounce this individual here. But they have full bind immunity, 40% poison resist, and double team HP. So that's actually a pretty good combination of awakenings, but their active skill is a low base cooldown at 3 turns, but it fully clears all awoken skill binds. And where I found this helpful was for Daytona teams, or any TPA-oriented team if you think about it, because TPA-oriented teams don't need to have unmatchable clearing through an active skill, because they can just match TPAs, someone has the unmatchable latent, and you clear them. So what I would utilize this card for is inheriting onto something with a very low base cooldown that has, like, say, desirable awakenings or color coverage, because this was oftentimes for Shura 3. So with this active skill here, I'm able to clear Awoken Binds with only one sub actually needing to have Awoken Bind or Cleric rolls, so to speak. And now that it comes with Team HP, because I don't think it did beforehand, it's much more easy and flexible in terms of team building. So as far as bottom rarity cards go, I think that's not bad overall, at least from my own usage, especially for TPA-oriented teams. And with that being said, we're now going to turn it over to the luscious Lumen, who is going to enlighten us with his own hot take on this collab event momentarily. And now we are joined by the luscious Lumen. So, Lumen, tell us a little brief summary of who you are.
Hey guys, I'm Lumen. I used to do a YouTube channel, but I'm a little inactive now. And in the side, I kind of just work and study for my degree.
Nice. All right, so tell us how you think the Hello Kitty or Sanrio collab is.
I think it's very interesting in a lot of ways. It's one of the few 5-stone collabs that actually have a very significant impact in different ways in terms of like cards, right? You got endgame farming ability with Norza Kitty and Algae Kitty, and then you have optimized farming efficiency with Varroa Kitty and the entire cadre of just dungeon boost cards that are in the top rarity.
Yep, there's many with triple dungeon bonus, which is unusual.
Yeah, I mean, before the collab existed, I mean, triple dungeon boost cards were an extreme rarity.
Yeah, I think it's like just Greed Dragon.
Yeah, it was like, it was bad before because I think we only had Greed and like Red Saline, and only
good luck getting
very
that.
few people had the Red Saline.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it definitely made things more accessible and just had a huge impact on farming. And then, you know, with this iteration of Sanrio, it's also become a lot better with, you know, endgame cards mirroring the Witch 2 series. So I think it's a very interesting 5-stone. It's very, very strong. And one of the key differences between this collab and like others is that you can kind of get away with not rolling too. If you have the requisite trade fodder of 6-star GFEs, you can quite literally just trade and get out. And that's a huge benefit because unfortunately for 5-stone, there's a lot of garbage in the bottom and mid rarities. So avoiding rolling is actually a very, very beneficial thing. And not only that, but you don't even have to trade the super valuable 7-star GFE that have become the standard fodder for top collabs. Instead, you can use your 6-star GFE that aren't really used for trading all that much anymore.
And also, like, the value of 6 stars are just less in general. Like, having 7-star Godfist exclusives tends to be much more meaningful because Gung-Ho just loves them more.
Exactly, yeah.
Alrighty, so let us talk about the first card that is highly notable of Algae Kitty.
Yeah, so Algae Kitty, and I guess to an extent if you reel in Norza Kitty, but let's just focus on Algae Kitty. Algae Kitty is a rainbow lead, and while she doesn't generate heals, and she doesn't loop with a 2 cooldown active skill, a 2 turn cooldown active skill, sorry. the great thing about her is that she has an auto recovery component in her leader skill that makes it extremely convenient because now you don't have to worry about matching heals ever. You just kind of just heal every time you match, and recovery is just not a concern.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're tackling dungeons like Shura 3, where you're going up against Parvati.
Mm-hmm.
I think Parvati might actually be dangerous, mainly because auto recovery component is based on your recovery. So actually, that might not be the best example. But the point is, like, let's say you're running through a dungeon like MD2 or MD3, right? You just combo, and you never have to worry about matching heals because the leader skill will just heal for you. So that's a huge benefit to her kit. Now, unfortunately, she doesn't generate rainbow boards every turn, but she generates them on a 3-turn cooldown, which means all you have to do is either throw in 3 algae kitties, or you can even throw in the farmable raw dragon as your
third board
last
option.
yeah, for the last part of your loop.
Yeah, and one other thing about like not matching hard orbs from her active skill or generating hard is that you actually get more colors, and you're actually technically doing more damage that way as well because you're matching more orbs that actually contribute to your output. Small thing, but it adds up. And the active skill gives a damage cap increase to 3 billion, so she does 6 instead of like 4.2ish or whatever, and she does hit incredibly hard.
Yeah, I think the only downside to Algae Kitty is that she's not that great of a user of the VDP latent, but it doesn't really matter because she already voids on her own, I believe.
Yeah, she does for one turn.
So like her main concern, because everything else in terms of Rainbow is just procced by 5 colors, right? You have the 5-color awakening, you have guard break, like
skill charge,
like all of them are procced by just 5 colors, and so, I mean, she's just a great Rainbow lead. Now, I will say that I'm not particularly sure if she can take on, let's say, the new super gravity content. The damage required there can be wild, but her multipliers are also wild too. So it'd be exciting to test her out in all sorts of dungeons for sure.
And it's an inexpensive trade. Like if you get 1, you have a great leader. In theory, you have 2 that you own. You pair for friend, therefore you have 3 algae kitties. You always have this active skill, and you never have to run VDP latent ever.
Yep.
And compared to like someone like a Telly, it's much less brain burning to play.
Yes.
That is a big plus. Alrighty. You want to talk about Norza Kitty now?
Yeah, so Norza Kitty is just... It's sort of like Algae Kitty in that Norza Kitty also brings along an auto recovery component in terms of auto heal plus awakenings. And this is absolutely fantastic because let's say you're running like a brick team, which Norza Kitty is. You're generating so many orbs, but you're not really focusing on generating heal orbs, right? And so, for example, if you look at the most famous brick team to date, Leo Shivadra, like you have 3 subs to generate fire in Shivadra, but then you also need 2 more to generate heals as well. And the healing component is actually one of Leo's weaknesses. He just doesn't... He heals for sure every turn because you have 2 Leos, but he actually doesn't heal all that much. And so it's one of the weaknesses. And so if you look at Norza Kitty, she doesn't have that problem. All she does is just swipe and go.
Yep.
It's literally super, super brain dead. And not only that, but her active skill also clears Awoken Vines, Unmatchables, and all that nasty stuff. So you don't even need to think. You just, like, you don't have to worry about time debuffs. You don't need to worry about recovery debuffs. You don't need to worry about Awoken Vines or Unmatchables or Vines. Like, you just kind of just swipe and go.
The only thing you have to worry about is Void.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Like, it's almost nothing by comparison, though. And it's still 16 times effective health. But the drawback is, how many Norza Kitties should you have?
Unfortunately, to maximize efficiency, you really want 4. Of course, you can run 3 and then use the 4th as your helper. But it is quite an expensive system, much like in the past where you either wanted 5 Sailing Kitties or 4 Zilla Kitties. It's a very expensive set for farming, but it is quite good. So.
Like in UN1, she's quite favorable for the most part. because it's a red heavy dungeon. She's blue.
Yep. And she would be great there because you really don't need to think all that much when you're comboing through. Not only that, but she also transforms. So in terms of like the delays in the dungeon, you don't even have to run like double damage cap latents or anything like that. You can afford to just put on SDRs and you'll be all good.
Mm-hmm. All right, and what other cards did you want to talk about?
I think the card I want to mention, one in the mid rarity, is the salmon, the Kirimi-chan. The salmon is pretty good as a blue brick sub. It's basically like blue Shivadra, and we all seen how strong Shivadra is. So having a blue version is pretty good.
But it actually unlocks, which is actually a big advantage.
It does, yeah. It unlocks, and not only that, but it also can take advantage of 50% or lower HP awakenings as well, because it includes a heal cut as well, which can be a little frustrating in a couple ways. But if you play around with it correctly, it can be a great benefit because it allows you to access a damage awakening that you otherwise couldn't.
Yeah, because 7 combo awakenings are pretty rare from weapon assists. Attack while below 50%, much more common by comparison.
Exactly.
And did you want to touch upon anyone else, or you think those are the main standouts for yourself?
I mean, the biggest one, I think the most valuable card from this collab is Varroa Kitty still. She is the absolute optimal leader option for farming any of the lower difficulty dungeons of like collab token farming. So like, let's say you have, Marvel reskin, aka Gung Ho collab another story farming, right? You always want to use Varroa Kitty because she's the only one who has the boosted drop rate in her leader skill and 3 dungeon boosts. All the other options are either suboptimal with either 2 or 1 dungeon boost, and so she's absolutely amazing. She also has the lowest cooldown as well, which makes her extremely valuable when you're trying to farm. You can inherit on top of her a wide variety of weapons to button or to swipe, and she's just the best in what she does. And I think that just gives her so much value because in terms of like collab token farming, that's just kind of a thing that we have. You don't have to do it, but it's just one of those things that you can do. And if you have Varroa Kitty, it just makes your life so much easier.
Exactly.
Now, I will say that it's unfortunate that Gung Ho has been changing the format so that the int dungeon are a lot harder to farm because they've raised the HP values significantly higher. Before, they would be in the 10,000s and you didn't have to care. You could just bring in a team of Raws and you'd be good. But now they're in the millions, they're in the hundreds of thousands, and it becomes exponentially more difficult. But even then, you still need Varroa Kitty to maximize efficiency. So I would definitely grab at least one. Like personally, I think it's just a must get.
Yeah.
You just have to grab one just because her entire package is just absolutely sublime.
Yeah, and like kind of an extension of that, like all the other, well, half of the top rarity cards or so have triple dungeon bonus. So if you get those ones, just stick them on this team anyways, and they act as great bases for inherits because they have pretty low base cooldowns.
Yep. Yeah, they're all pretty good, and they might not be as like critically needed per se as like Varroa Kitty, but if you have them, they're great.
Yeah. All right. So do you have any closing remarks you'd like to make?
I mean, this machine it's so unique. It's just such a strong 5-stone collab, which have become quite the rarity these days. We've seen a lot of 10-stone, a lot of 7-stone, and we just don't really see 5-stones anymore. And so, it's very interesting to me to see a collab like this have such an impact on the game.
Yeah, there's actually meaningful cards in it.
Yep.
All right, so thank you so much, Lumen, for your thoughts, time, and insight. And to all you other lovely ladies and gentlemen out there in the audience, hopefully you all have a truly fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pet adventures, and happy puzzling.